Welcome back, everybody. Johnny here with the Caturday Show. And what a show we got for you today. We got special guest DevinReviews, which is a fellow streamer. We'll talk about what he does. He's a very cool dude. Suvi, how's it going? Jonathan, my dude, happy Caturday to you as well. How is everybody today? And Nitro with the... How many months is it? 8 months tier 1, my dude. Thank you so much for the continued support and for being here in your Saturday. We're going to talk about music production. We're going to talk about software engineering, living in London, streaming, games, Dota 2, some Dark Souls as well. Devin has a surprising amount of overlap with me, and it was kind of surprising to find that. We talked a little bit offline, and we're going to get into the weeds here in a moment. Also, you can check out his channel. I've been watching some of his streams, and he's a very chill dude. Quite quickly, I knew that I wanted to chat with him. He's very easygoing, and he's got a cool British accent as well. So if you're into that, go check out his channel. He's playing Dota 2 at the moment, and he's getting into ranked. So we're going to talk about that as well, because I have, of course, played a lot of Dota as well. And it will be a lot of fun. So I think with that... Hold on. Jonathan also with the 4 months. Dude, thank you for the Twitch Prime. And I hope you're doing well with your newborn as well. Give Zoe a big kiss. Or a big hug. Getting ready for a light jog walk with an amazing stream. Suvi, enjoy your walk. That's very, very cool. Okay, so I think with that introduction, we'll get the man himself on the channel and give him the chance to give us a bit of a more complete introduction to what it is that he does and what he is doing currently on the channel. So without further ado, I give you DevinReviews. Hello. Hello.
How you doing, mate?
Sir, thank you for making it today. I really appreciate it, and I hope you're doing well.
Thank you for having me.
So, Jonathan says thank you for being a pillar on this great community, my dude.
Oh.
Heart you back. And so this is Devin. First off, Devin, I approve of your hairstyle.
Why,
right?
This is recent, actually. I had a receding hairline for years, and I was like, I'm going to do it one day. It's going to happen. And this is like the fresh cut from maybe, I don't know, I've had this for like a month. I think I had hair like a month ago. It's crazy. This is very recent.
Toxic, thank you for the follow. How's it going? Tomba Man, welcome back. So, dude, I have to say, for me, it was a liberation when I buzzed my hair off. Because I used to spend a lot of energy worrying about it, like, oh, you know, like the wind is kind of messing it up. It doesn't look good, right? A lot of energy brushing it in the morning. It's all gone, right? It's amazing. Like 50% of my energy is back. It's incredible.
Yeah, no, it's incredibly freeing, but I got to admit, I kind of come from a different angle. The reason I had hair was because I was too lazy to shave it off for years, honestly. It was the correct move for me, but like... I'm just one of those people that's never really particularly cared that much about like my own presentation. It's just not something I've ever really like been that bothered about. So yeah, for me it was just like, yeah, fuck. You know, actually, here's a funny story just to kick things off. So my mum's a hairdresser. She's like a businesswoman. She owns a salon, right? She's doing it for like 30 years. So I always get my hair cut at hers, right? And basically, for years, she's been like, Devin, do you want me to shave it off? And I'm just like, don't worry about it, just cut it. I can't be asked. But this time, I went to the store and my mum joked about it. And then someone else said, you know what, actually, Devin, I think it would really suit you. And I was like, you know what? Why not today? Fuck it. Let's throw it to a vote. Everyone in the salon right now, can you vote on whether I should shave my hair off? And it was 3 votes yes and 2 votes no. So we just fucking did it. Just shaved it all off.
Wow.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a bit scary the first time because... you don't know if your head maybe has a weird shape. You've never seen it under the hair, right? So it's like, and there's no going back. Like once you buzz your hair off, it's kind of like, you know, you're kind of set in that. So
It's the same thing, I think, as when you like have had a beard for ages and then you shave it off and you're like, holy shit, my chin is so strange.
That's true.
Like,
Yeah.
Is
that my
feeling
face? Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, this is kind of a bit of a tangent, but I thought it was funny to start with that. Give us a little bit of a bio. Who is Devin, and what is your channel about?
Sure. So, hi everyone, my name is Devin. At the minute I'm doing kind of single player games and Dota. I played the Dark Souls games recently, and that was kind of been my last like year of streaming. But just to give like a slight idea about the channel in general, it started out and it's called DevinReviews because A, I'm very not creative, and B, I like looking at things like analytically. I like critiquing things, that kind of stuff. So the initial idea for the channel was I would go live, play an indie game, then make like a review for that game on YouTube. So you'd have these two supplementary sort of like things. But what ended up happening is I enjoyed the streaming a lot more than the actual video editing and whatnot. So I just ended up picking up the streaming, and I started out doing indie games, moved into Dark Souls type stuff. And nowadays I finished all the Soulsborne games, at least all of the official From Software ones. Picked up Dota, and now I'm just kind of doing a lot of single player games. Like I'm playing Alien Isolation at the minute. That's my game of choice right now.
So are you balancing between that and Dota? Because I've seen a bunch of Dota as well.
Yeah. So I'm doing Dota on like Wednesdays and Fridays, and I'm doing Alien Isolation at the minute 3 times a week, and that's Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. And I occasionally just go live when when I'm like just infused to go live and play some like CSGO or Apex Legends as well, just very occasionally, but that's not like a frequent thing.
Cool. So do you have a schedule right now, or how are you operating? What does that look like?
Yeah, so right now I'm streaming quite a lot, actually. I'm doing 5 times a week, and so 15 hours total, because it's 3-hour streams 5 times a week.
Damn.
Wednesday and Friday is at 3:30, so right in the afternoon, and the other 3 are evening streams. So Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday are all at like 7 till 10, that sort of time slot.
Cool. So what got into you to get into Dota 2? Because it's obviously it's a tough learning curve, isn't it? So how are you finding it, and what got you into this madness?
So I guess a lot of the decisions I make are usually born of some kind of just like spur of the moment, absurd situation. Basically, I decided that Dark Souls wasn't enough torture, and I was going to let chat decide what game I can play from here on out. So I added a channel points reward tier that people could redeem, and someone redeemed it. And what they wanted me to do was they wanted me to play an hour of Dota, and that's the game they wanted me to try. And I was like, for years, I've been like, I will never touch a MOBA. They're cool games. I understand why people like them. Can't do the communities. Just way too toxic. Can't do it. Like, not a fan. But then I tried that one game of Dota, and I was like, yeah, this is okay. It's fine. Like, I'm having fun, I guess. The people are okay. And then a weird thing happened. A strange thing happened that night, Johnny. I went to sleep, and I was like, oh man, I could have played that game better. Oh shit, if I bought this item instead of that one, maybe I would have had a better chance. Oh, you know what? I could probably farm more efficiently if I tried going this jungle route. But
the bug got you.
Now. Yep, it's got me now.
Oh shit.
So, yep. Oh shit, here goes 5,000 hours of my life.
Exactly, we were talking about it prior. I've put in over 5,000 hours, and that's exactly what happens, man. You start off and you're like, it's okay, right? It's okay. Yeah. Could be fun with friends, but then you're like, man, I really wanted to like get more creeps, and you're thinking, oh, okay, so focus on denies, right? And focus on and like harass the heroes away so I can get space to get right. And then you start like benchmarking, like, okay, I need to have like 60 CS by minute 10, whatever it is, right? And it's
I'm mid lane troll. I need at least 50 kills by 10 minutes, and then I can go and push one of the towers. And that's
the juice for me. It's a beautiful game. I agree on the community. It's kind of what caused me to stop. So like 2 years ago or something, I stopped playing, and it was a mix of toxic community and like people, and also like a lot of time. Because
of course,
it's a time sink, right? You play a game, maybe it's a disaster, and you're stuck in it for an hour. It's a terrible game. And then you're like, dude, I can't go to sleep on that bad note.
Just
I have
one
to
more game.
right.
Just
I
one
got to
more.
do
Let's
one
not
more,
make it a game. Let's
and
not
then
make it
maybe you win it, and then you're like, dude, I'm in a row. Let's go.
Yeah.
Boom. 3 hours have gone, and you haven't played any other games. So that was what I felt like. With the free time I had, I wasn't able to get to anything else aside of Dota. So, I cut
fair,
it.
yeah.
I've been playing a bit it very casually now and having a lot of fun, taking it a lot more lightly and, just enjoying the cosmetics and stuff and supporting the international stuff too. So,
yeah. I think one of the things that's helped me is just in my nature, I'm quite like you said earlier, I was listening to your little intro, and I'm a very relaxed person. I really love competitive games and I adore competition, but I'm not really that competitive a person. I don't really get frustrated when I lose. I'm not hyper focused on winning. I typically just like playing games that have a lot of depth, understanding what about them, understanding how I can win and understand how the mechanics work and why you do certain things, that kind of stuff, how it all pieces together. And I enjoy competition because I just really enjoy pushing myself to improve at certain things.
Yeah.
So one of the things that actually pulled me to Dota was I hadn't actually played a game with a ladder in a long time. I haven't played a game that I've just grinded a ladder on for pretty much since I don't know, Wings of Liberty, StarCraft. So that'd be 10 years ago, maybe something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you're enjoying it. We got to play some together at some point. I think it will be fun.
Sure.
I heard you say you were about to get into ranked games.
Yep.
Have you started doing that?
Yep, I am 4 placements deep, and I've won 3 and lost 1 so far. So we're doing okay. It's I mean, honestly, it hasn't changed a ton at the minute because I don't think I've reached at the minute I'm still playing with Heralds, which is one of the lower ranks, or maybe the lowest rank, I'm not sure. So it's no one in there takes it ultra seriously or anything. You don't get flamed if you make a mistake or whatever. Plus, in all the games I won, I think I was a pretty good teammate. I think I generally contributed to the wins as opposed to was just doing okay or whatever. I think I did pretty well in most of them. Cool. In the one we lost, it was also 100% my fault, to be fair. But you take
Yeah, that's the tricky thing with Dota, that it isn't 100% your fault because there's so many factors, right? It could be your team, things the other team are doing, just coincidences that happen throughout the game. But I think that it's a much more productive way of progressing to take as much ownership over what's going on in the game as you can and say, what could have I done differently? Because in reality, it doesn't really matter if someone else in your team fucked up and was terrible. You're not going to see that guy again. He was a random. He's gone, right? He's continuing with his pathetic existence somewhere. But you have the chance to take something on board and do better next game. And to me, that's what matters. And that's why I typically never get angry in games, because I am just comparing myself against myself, let's say, mostly, and just looking to improve on my own game, which is really all I care about. Yeah. And also having fun with people if I'm playing with people. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, there's no point getting mad over something you couldn't really control. If you I don't know, if you observe your own play and you recognize where you're going wrong and you try and improve on those things, that's really all you can do. If maybe you see someone in a game doing something that's particularly bad, just type a message. If they take it on board, they take it on board. If they don't, they don't. Don't be toxic, be chill. Just say, hey dude, maybe you should try this instead. Yeah. And whatever happens. You can only do so much, right?
Yeah, you have to understand that you will lose games even despite maybe playing well in them and maybe deserving to win, but outside of your control, sometimes you will lose games. You have to accept that as well, which kind of is maybe a good segue to talk about Souls games and Dark Souls, which there's a lot of that going on, right? Understanding that you're gonna die and there's gonna be some rough love and some learning there. So what's I guess what games more or less have you played in the series, and what's your experience been like?
Sure. So I played, again, this was a suggestion from someone who's been watching me for a long time. I played all of the main Dark Souls series and also Sekiro and Bloodborne. I also played a bit of Salt and Sanctuary, which is an indie game version of Dark Souls, more or less. But I quit that halfway. Pardon me, sorry. I quit that halfway through because I just didn't find it that enjoyable, really. But yeah, so Dark Souls has been one of the things that I've been trying to get into for a long time. I obviously, when it was blowing up, I don't even know when Dark Souls came out, but like I remember that like Demon Souls came out and people took a bit of notice of it, but it was mostly just like, this is punishing and not fun. Then Dark Souls came out and suddenly it clicked for everyone. Everyone understood what the games were about and got into them. I missed that first wave massively, despite being a huge fan of a lot of the parts of the aesthetic, and a like big fan of punishing games, right? Difficult games. So my first experience trying it, I think, was very short. I pretty much went in, died, and was like, "This isn't fun." I think I got cursed by like one of the frogs in the steps or whatever, and I was like, you know what, I'm done. That's enough for me. Then one of my friends got super into it quite a few years later after it came out, and he was like, "Hey Devin, I reckon I can push you through the boundary. Let's do drunk souls. What you'll do is you'll come around my house, you'll play. Every time you die, you'll drink, and we'll play together and we'll have a good time." So we got more and more drunk and progressively worse and worse and worse, but it was a good time, and it did inspire me to kind of like play again. Tried it again. I can't remember I got up to the second time. I want to say I got stuck at the gargoyles like for ages, and then was like, you know what, I'm done. Final chance. It's over. It's too much for me. I can't do it. I've had my fun. I'm good. Then, obviously, chat was like, Devin, play Dark Souls. For fuck's sake. That's so good. Play Dark Souls.
Right.
Like, fine. Last attempt. Let's go for it. Burst through the barrier. It was really fun. I had a lovely time. I played all 3 games. Played Bloodborne as well. Played Sekiro as well. Good-ass games.
Beautiful. I mean, yeah, man, there is, I think you phrase it in a good way, which is that threshold. And, whether you enjoy the basic gameplay enough to get past that, I think is a big thing. I think a lot of people just don't like it enough to put in, whatever hours necessary to get through that. But I think once there is a real sense in which once you get your first big win, whether it's the gargoyles, right, or maybe Capra Demon, depending on the game you're playing, right? Like the first one, you get that taste of overcoming something that seemed just impossible. Like the first time you fight gargoyles, right? It's like, it's 2-on-1. What's going right?
What am I supposed to do?
What am I missing here?
In the back and breathes fire at me.
Am I in the wrong area? Right? You're like, am I supposed to like grind out something? And no, it's just a skill thing. And it's so obvious once you do get to like a next level of skill that's the only thing between you and, beating the boss, is getting that level of skill, which I think is super satisfying. Because it does push you all the time to get better, because the only thing keeping you from beating a boss is just skill. It's very rare that it's really like you need a particular piece of gear or a certain level to so that for me, that's the juice. But I wanted to hear from you, how do you think that a game like Sekiro compares to some of the classic Dark Souls?
Okay, so I guess I really liked Sekiro. I liked it quite a lot, more so than it seemed like the average person did, I think. And I think basically a lot of the complaints I hear about Sekiro is that there's a lot less versatility in how you can play it. Basically, you have to learn to parry, and you have to learn to get into the flow of the combat. And I can understand why a lot of people kind of like, I don't know what you've heard exactly, but my initial impression going into the game was that it was less liked than Dark Souls, but still good. Having said that, 2 of my closest friends who love the Dark Souls series said that they think Sekiro is like amazing. One of them much prefers it to the Dark Souls series. And now having played it, I can really understand that opinion. Sekiro is unbelievably polished. It does one thing, that's parrying and that like rhythmic combat, but it does it so well. They've like perfected all of the like viscera in Dark Souls and just diffused it into one like drop of pure parry, and they've done it so well and in such a satisfying way that I think I would go so far as to say, like, on an objective or technical level in terms of like game design, stuff like that, I would say Sekiro is probably better than nearly all the Dark Souls games. Maybe one is better in my opinion, but I definitely think on a technical level, Sekiro is the better game. Right. I love Dark Souls, for the record. I love it, but Yeah, like I would say Dark Souls 1 is my favorite game, but that's less to do with the actual gameplay and more because one thing I loved about the Dark Souls is how much the first one felt like an adventure. Like every new area had a different theme with different bosses and all these wonderful like monsters and kind of cosmic horrors and that kind of thing, right? So it really felt like an adventure, and that's something none of the other games I thought captured. So I was really pleased to find out that Sekiro didn't try to replicate that and instead tried something else and just did it really well, right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it is kind of a rhythm game, which is why I don't like it as much, because to me it really felt a bit contrived in the sense that if you didn't play the game the way they intended it, it was impossible, right? I tried, doing the usual strats, which is, like dashing to the sides or like rolling in my mind, right? Sprinting around the boss, that kind of thing just doesn't work, right? Because they've put in abilities so that the bosses can just counter that super easy.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so the one game in town is parrying, and I've never been like a huge fan of parrying, so to me it was a bit like it didn't totally connect. But I think you're right, like at an objective level I can also say it's it's an awesome game.
I can definitely understand that. Like I wasn't that good at the parrying in Dark Souls either. In fact, I don't think I ever parried. I remember getting to Gwyn on Dark Souls 1, and chat was like, this will be fine. Oh, you'll walk through this. Just parry him 4 times, easy clap. It'll be fine. And then I got in. It took me 3 hours to kill Gwyn because I just couldn't parry him.
You couldn't get it.
Like, I was so bad at it.
Yeah. What about, because right now after this I'm gonna be playing Dark Souls 2 here. I played it back in the day, and I'm just doing like a bit of a nostalgia revisit of it. So did you what did you think of that one? Because it's widely known as maybe the lesser title in the series.
I think Dark Souls 2 is a really, really great game that is deeply flawed in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I guess the way I would put it is I think a lot of the criticisms are valid in it feeling a little clunkier, a little less polished than 1 or 3. But at the same time, I personally wouldn't put it... I don't think it's worse than 3, which a lot of people say. I think its biggest problem is the fact that it's a little bit less polished than the other 2, and it's just way too long. Like, I don't understand why they didn't cut that game down to like half the amount. It's just such a slog by the end. But I think it has some genuinely amazing moments, and I actually think I would say that it has my favorite boss fights in all of the 3 Dark Souls games.
Okay.
So yeah, I did enjoy 2 a lot. It was a bit of a slog by the end. I guess like I was glad that they tried something different. At least I felt like I was slightly disappointed by Dark Souls 3, even though Dark Souls 3 was super polished. It just felt like more Dark Souls. Like I felt like 2 was at least different,
Yeah, it was, for me, it's just like the best iteration. And it is just an iteration. Like, as you say, they didn't really do anything totally different. But to me, it's like, if you had to play one game, that's like, the one I would go to. But I don't want to get too much in the Souls, because there's a lot I want to talk about. Sure. And so let's move on to music, because you said you're also into music. I'm obviously a music buff as well. So tell me a little bit about what's your exposure to music, what it is that you do in that.
Sure. So I guess my musical story is a little bit different to most people's. I think most people kind of like get an interest in music growing up and listening to all their parents play around them. That's like the most typical thing you hear. Like, oh, my dad listened to Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd around the house, and I got into those bands, then grew up loving guitar and blah 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 blah. I was quite different. I didn't really get into music until I was like maybe 14 or 15. And it was through a friend, because my parents were never into music. So it was through a friend who showed me Linkin Park for the first time that I got like super obsessed with music. And yeah, I did a lot of the kind of, I guess, stereotypical things. I grew up listening to a lot of kind of rock and metal. I want to say when I was around 18 or 19, I started getting into like punk and hardcore. And then after that point, I think I got into like hip hop and electronic music. And since about 22, for the last like 5 years or whatever, I've just listened to an absolutely like just everything, basically, just whatever sounds good, I play drums as well. I've been playing drums for about 10 years. That's not to say I'm actually good. I'm pretty like I'd say I'm probably like slightly below average for considering I'm playing for 10 years. But I love playing music. I love playing in bands. I love attending live shows. There was a year where I went to like, I think I went to about 250 concerts in a year,
Whoa.
something like that. So yeah, I have a huge love and passion for music, even if it has
Amazing.
fallen a bit off.
Do you
But, yeah.
actually have a drum set at your place, or?
So I have a drum kit at my parents' house, which is
Okay.
basically just up the road. Because I'm living in this flat at the minute, I can't have a drum kit in a flat. It's just not possible,
Yeah.
right?
In my prior
yeah.
flat, I had an electronic drum set, which is like smaller, but still they take up so much space, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, drums is it's kind of therapy, because you know, you can really just let it all out. It's great.
Yeah. I adore playing drums. I always say, like, because so for me, in terms of a live show, when I go to watch a band, the thing I usually want is I want the energy on stage to match like what it sounds like generally.
Yeah.
So I've always been super big into like hardcore and punk. I love bands like the Dillinger Escape Plan. Gallows, I think, were the first band I saw where I was like, oh, holy shit. This guy is running around everywhere. He's like jumping down into the audience and getting up in people's faces and stuff. Like, and that to me matched the energy of the music so well that from that point is when I was like really hooked on music.
Yeah, I think the first concert I went to was Green Day. This was back in this dates me, but this was back in like 2012, I think, around.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And so those were like the American Idiot days, basically, or like the next album after that. And I love their music, and I really dug their on-stage presence too, which is why, that was the first band I wanted to go see. My favorite band was Red Hot Chili Peppers, and kind of still is. But that was the first one I wanted to see because they have this like on-stage presence, like the frontman Billy Joe. It's Billy Joe, isn't it? I don't remember.
For Green Day, I think so.
Yeah, I think it's Billy something.
Billy Joe Armstrong.
Billy Joe Armstrong. Yep.
Yeah.
He's got. I like how he sings as well a lot, but also there's like this kind of presence from him that I got, and it was incredible experience for me to be there and to sing those songs out loud with the crowd, everybody singing. It's insane, right? That experience there's nothing like it.
Yeah, I don't think there's an experience like it either, really. I think when you genuinely love a band and you go and see them live and everybody is into it, that's a hard feeling to be.
When you hear what may be like thousands of people around you echoing back the words, everybody knows the words, right? And what's coming next, everybody's on the same page. It's that almost like magical feeling of synergy with complete strangers that you get in only few occasions. It's very good.
For sure. I think my first gig actually was I went to see Linkin Park in 2008 at the O2 back on the Minutes to Midnight tour.
Amazing.
And it was very similar thing.
Actually, Minutes to Midnight I really liked that album. A lot of people crapped on it, but I enjoyed it. Some of the more melodic stuff that Linkin Park has done for me was really good as well when they went, because obviously they started out as this kind of like I guess new metal, whatever you want to call it, like like screaming out loud, which was, it's awesome, right? You got some classics still to this day, like Crawling and In the End. You can
Faint,
you can quote any of those songs and people instantly know it's from them, right? But some of the melodic stuff I felt was really good too, where it kind of felt like I saw a different side of the band. And I always enjoy when you do see bands kind of go through a bit of a transformation.
Evolution,
I find it cool.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think all of my favorite bands at this point, I don't think I can think of a single one that isn't at least a little bit like diverse. My favorite bands right now would probably be like Converge and the Dillinger Escape Plan, who have sadly broken up now. But both of those bands have a consistent sound. When you hear a song by them, you know it's them. But all the albums have like their own flavor, and that's what keeps them. So like Converge have been going for like, I think something like 30 years, and there are like just some weird metalcore band. Like every record is distinctly them, but you can always pick new ideas out of each album, kind of a flavor for an album, that kind of thing. And I think that's really what makes like a classic band, it to a degree, right?
Yeah.
Or at least this certainly like a one part of it.
Yeah, for sure. So drums is your main instrument. Do you play anything else that you've tried?
I have tried playing bass and guitar and done both incredibly poorly. But yeah, I'd say drums are the only instrument I could. If you ask me like what instruments do I play, I'd just say drums. I can only play drums.
Gotcha. Yeah, it takes a lot of work, right? Like this in drums. You start off and you're unable to even maintain like a basic like thing with one hand, and then and then it's like over time it kind of clicks and it's second nature. Like now you could be doing a basic rhythm and talking to me, right? Just based on how much you've done it, which is pretty incredible. It kind of shows how much of it is muscle memory and
100%.
And just making things that initially you have to think about a lot, making them second nature, so you don't have to think about it at all, right? It's like go on. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say 100%. Like I said, a lot of the bands that influenced me when I was sort of started getting more into aggressive music, I guess, was a lot of the bands that on stage were super energetic. So for me, even as a drummer, I've always felt like if I go on stage, I'm not just playing drums, I'm performing, right?
Yeah.
So like you have to like exert an energy,
put out some energy, and
exactly. You have to fit in with the band and that kind of thing. So like being able to play the songs confidently enough so that they are basically just, second, like in your subconscious almost, is like a vital part of performance in my opinion. So
no, that's right, because I think that some drum players give you the sense that they are operating at 120% just to be able to perform the song. Like there's nothing, they can't do anything outside of that, because they're fully committed to just being able to do that. And struggling. And then you have other players that exude this almost like they make it look easy and fun, where it looks like they're only using 60% of their bandwidth with actually performing the song, and then they have available like something like 40-50% where they can be a showman or showwoman, whatever, right? And they can put on a fucking show, and that's incredible. I saw a band called Hailstorm. I don't know if you know them.
I'm familiar.
It's so the singer is a chick, and the drummer is her brother. So they they're very close, and they got this banter and stuff. So it's they have some chemistry on stage, and he has this amazing presence. Like at one point he brings out some giant drumsticks. So maybe something like this. So he's playing with those gigantic drumsticks, and he's playing the real song, and like he stands up, right? And so there's some real energy that comes out from some drummers that really carry the show. I think, like for me, another band that comes to mind is Foo Fighters, where I forget his name. I'm pretty bad with names, but the blonde guy with the long hair in the drums, he's a machine, right? And you get this fucking energy from seeing him play. Biffy Clyro says it buried in chat. Also, great live band.
Yeah, too. Biffy Clyro, an amazing live band.
They're British, right? They're British as well.
No, for sure. I have a lot of respect for Biffy Clyro. Their first 3, I'm not saying they got like bad or anything, but like their first 3 albums for me are like very, very solid fucking records. Like I really love those records.
Yeah, in fact, there's one, I forget the name.
That you've got you've got Blackened Sky, Vertigo of Bliss.
So the one before Blackened Sky, maybe, what was that?
Infinity.
I'll have to check, but it was a bit of an older album compared to, as you say, the new stuff is also good, but it was a bit of an older album, where they had that song, I think, called Bubbles or something like that in that album.
Oh, Bubbles is on Only Revolutions.
Only Revolutions, thank you. That album, okay, I used to listen to that whole album back, in the day, like start to finish. And a lot of those songs, really most of them, to me, felt like a hymn. Like it's something you could fucking, get your weight behind. Like you could sing that shit like you were in a choir. and there's this
sure.
choir quality to the melodies they do.
Right?
Yeah, it's a bit of magic to be able to get to those melodies.
Biffy have always been very good at those kind of insanely large, grandiose, like closing, like kind of cuts and stuff like that. I think one of the things that I really love about Biffy is they're one of the biggest bands I can think of from the UK, and they have kept such a like underground DIY feel to the way they do everything. And
but they're massive, massively successful, and yet you get this indie feel from them.
Yeah, no, for sure. I really respect them for that. I think that's a really cool thing.
So one big thing that I've come to appreciate over the years is the rhythm section. Because so I'm mostly a guitar guy, but I also play drums, keyboards, and bass. But really, guitar is my main thing, and it's where I started. So when I started, I was like, it's all about the guitar. That's what you hear. The other stuff is in the back. But over the years, I've come to understand that the bands that I really liked and really felt powerful to me, it was due mostly to the rhythm section. And this chemistry between drums and bass, where, and this, this leads me to Red Hot Chili Peppers, is where this comes full circle, where, you have Flea on the bass and Chad on the drums, and every time, Chad hits the bass drum, Flea is hitting, like a low note or something, with incredible precision. And you may not notice it, but that's what's happening in the background for it to give you that sense of groove. And it's tight. Well, it's what they call in the music business, it's tight, right?
I think with a lot of music that is good, I think a lot of the time people don't realize like why it's good if you haven't like been listening to music for a long time. Like a lot of the time there's a lot more craft that goes into some song. Even in like really basic pop songs, there's a lot more craft than you might imagine that goes into a lot of the kind of nuance of the writing in them. It's surprisingly detailed for a lot of stuff. So
it's a little bit like movies. You might watch an entire movie and be totally oblivious to all the work going behind it, but the reality is there's like hundreds of people in a production, right? And like one person's full-time job could be like adjusting the angle, the focus on one camera. That's their full-time job. There's actually one person that's their job.
Yeah, my favorite example of something like this actually is, do you know the director David Fincher? Yeah, so like David Fincher's works are notorious for like having hundreds of takes per scene. He's like a complete perfectionist, and it's all for stuff that people just wouldn't realize, but improve the film in like a very subconscious way. I saw a really good video from I think it was either Nerdwriter or Every Frame a Painting, one of those two. But basically, what Fincher does is every time someone in the film makes like a subtle movement, so say someone like just kind of like looks up then looks down, or they'll might like lean to the side or something. If in any of his films, more or less, you'll notice the camera matches their movement basically perfectly, but it like more or less like 1-to-1. There's no like lag. And to get those kind of movements perfectly, you have to have the actors doing everything at very precise timings. And it almost becomes like a dance, like everything is very precisely timed. And I don't think that's something that people would really notice, but it makes the camera feel kind of like this more omniscient observer. And that adds like an element to the film that I think a lot of people get enjoyment out of, but maybe not without realizing it. And that's just like one tiny detail that
it's really interesting. It's really interesting because it definitely, people notice it, but at a subconscious level, as you say. I'm watching this show Twin Peaks. It's an older show. I don't know if you watched it. Because I'm finally getting around to watching it. And it's an older show, and I'm not gonna spoil anything, by the way, but there's like this one kind of dream scene where the character is dreaming, and it's like a red room, and there's something about how they shot that whole thing that made me feel like I was in a fever dream. I felt physically uneasy watching that. And I don't remember the last time, watching something actually made me feel in a physical way. So that kind of stuff to me is incredible. And for sure, it's, very deliberate, right? Like behind the scenes, there's so much work that goes into that stuff, which it's nice to appreciate.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm actually writing a video at the minute. I'm working on it about a game. I don't know if have you heard of it. It's a game called Firewatch, an indie game. Came out
Yeah,
a couple years
I
ago.
played it. It was a lot of fun actually to play.
Yeah. I'm doing a video on Firewatch about some of the themes, and it's another case where like the more I think about that game, the more I realize like there was so much work that went into a lot of these subtleties in the background that you may not initially notice, but they add so much to the overall kind of feel of the game. You know,
Yeah.
it's insane. Like
The
artists are
dialogue
amazing.
in that game was very good. It felt very
Yeah.
natural. Like it was good banter. It kind
Yeah.
of feels like the banter you would have with a coworker, right? So
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
like a female coworker, and they're kind of they're flirting a little bit and
yeah.
banter back and forth, and it feels real to some extent. But
Yeah, for
I
sure.
wanted to hear from you about your YouTube channel, because I haven't actually had a chance to check it out. So what is it that you're doing over there?
Not a whole heck of a lot at the minute, to be honest. It's been a bit dead for a while, but no. The idea is I wanted to do like a mix of reviews on it. I've done a couple like indie games recently. I really enjoy like talking about whatever with
Yeah.
chat. So like I've spoken about art before. I've spoken about politics, philosophy, like whatever. And some of those discussions I think are interesting, so I throw those up on there. I've done a music review. I want to do more album reviews because I again just really love music.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's generally just like a review channel. I was putting up VODs for a while, but the more I thought about it, the more I thought it was kind of pointless to do so, at least for me personally. And I'd rather have like kind of less high quality content as opposed to more, right? So
Right.
yeah, it's just a lot of review content. I've spoken about a couple games I really loved. I've spoken about an album I really loved, and yeah, that's pretty much it at the minute.
So what's interesting there is you seem to have like a broad, how to say this? Because normally, when you go to a YouTube channel, it's hey, here's what I offer, right?
Yeah.
It's like one type of product, let's say. So maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's cooking videos, right? Or
Sure.
maybe it's music reviews, like you said. But you seem to be doing like a bunch of different things. So you're doing like music reviews, game reviews, and also like conversation stuff.
Yeah. So basically, just generally speaking, I am a huge fan of more or less all types of media, right? I love TV shows, I love films, I love music, I love games. I should probably read more, honestly. But other than that, like for the most part, I'm a huge fan of all these mediums, and I've always looked at things on a critical level. I've always liked kind of analyzing stuff. So for me, it's really hard to just like focus on one thing I really enjoy and to say, okay, I'm a music review channel. I did actually have a music review channel years ago that I did just do music reviews on. But yeah, like over time, I've gotten more interested in different types of things, and there's just so much to talk about. I don't really want to limit myself. It's not the most marketable thing in the world, but it's an outlet to kind of express how I feel about a whole bunch of different topics. And yeah,
I kind of sympathize because I've done like a ton of different things on my channel. But I've now come to the decision that I am going to focus on one type of thing, and it's going to be like gaming. So every week I'm doing a video on like talking about one of my favorite games that I've played and, why it's memorable to me in some way.
Sure.
But yeah, I think it's difficult when you don't do that. And I think that's why, I've had a very hard time getting traction there because I've done so many different things. Like some videos would be like a music improvisation video, then like the next one might be a game review, and then someone who subs to me for the game reviews, they don't give a shit about the music stuff, and they don't watch because they don't like that. So I've been trying to kind of bring it, make it a bit more uniform in some way, and like make it work for me in terms of discovery, because really what I want out of YouTube is to like get more people to find me, and if they do gravitate towards my kind of delivery and stuff, then to kind of go over to the Twitch channel, which is my main thing I'm trying to push.
Sure.
But it sounds like on your side, YouTube for you is kind of a creative outlet, right? More than purely like like an 100%. Instrument to get more exposure.
Yeah. No, 100%. I definitely so I would like to get more traction, I guess, on YouTube. Twitch is definitely my main thing by this point, and yeah, at the minute, I'm really enjoying just doing a variety of different things, just whatever kind of flavor of the week thing I want to do or talk about or work on. Like YouTube is a great place for that stuff. I'm not too worried about, I guess. I'm not too worried about growing an audience over there, at least not yet. Maybe I'll focus it down in the future, like I said, and like you've rightly said, it's not the most marketable thing. If it's just like, hey, I'm a guy who makes videos about kind of everything.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, but I guess my Twitch is more that for me because I very much am like a Dota guy, and I do variety streaming, which is maybe a little less good, but it's interesting. So I'm actually, since the Soulsborne games are done, like since I've done all of the Dark Souls games and Sekiro and Bloodborne, I actually did have a conversation with everyone in my audience. So I was like, well, now this is done, I don't really know where to go. I actually had a bit of an identity problem. I was like, I'm not really sure where to go.
Where do we go from here? We've done it all in the...
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and that's an interesting discussion too. It's like, first off, like, why do you stream, right? What is it that you're trying to do? What kind of game serves that purpose the best? Or maybe it's just for fun, right? Maybe you're just streaming because it's fun and you're interacting with friends and people, which is fine too. But what is it for you that drives you to stream, do you think?
So there's a couple of different things. Firstly, I just love chatting to people. For as long as I can remember, I've been making friends online. I've been arguing with an unholy number of people online. I'm constantly talking about whatever. Like, if I have an opinion, I love discussing it. That's just what I do. I always debate with one of my best mates who I've been friends with for like 15 years. We constantly argue about random shit. And yeah, I've just always done it. So Twitch seemed like a decent place to do that. Yeah. I love games as well. So playing games is just a natural, like I've always played games for as long as I can remember as well. So yeah, to me, Twitch is just another outlet, another place I can converse with people. I think I'm a chatty dude, and I think that hooks a lot of people in. I think I'm quite personable too. So yeah, it's a place for me to have like conversations, I would say, broadly speaking, and also play whatever games I'm interested in at the time. Like I said, because I think about things analytically a lot, I also think as I'm playing a game, I can usually give like my running thoughts on what bits of the game are good and why. And I think that's somewhat interesting. And it's interesting for me to go over that with a live audience, and they might, disagree with something. We can talk about it, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's like the main reason I do Twitch. It's just the interactivity.
Yeah, and I think Twitch has the best like community feel when it comes to that. I've tried streaming on YouTube and Mixer too, but really it's a different vibe. It's kind of hard to explain, but the people coming into chat seem to have a different vibe. But then I guess also for my channel, because I market as, for mature publics, because I do curse, and I like, sometimes I talk about like deep topics, other times it's just, butt jokes or something. But either way, I don't want necessarily kids to be exposed to that shit.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get your take. Is that also like your model, where you're kind of targeting just like 18 plus people, basically?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I'm not hyper focused on age as like a massive important thing. It's more about how a person acts and like maturity, I guess. So like if someone comes, I've got plenty of people in my audience who are like, especially when I started, I had a lot of like 14-year-olds that would watch me because I was playing a lot of The Binding of Isaac, which has a fairly young audience, weirdly, despite the fact it's been around for so long, but whatever, that just seems to be the case.
Yeah.
And like, it was just a mixed bag. Like some people are, kind of immature, other people are quite mature and you can have a decent conversation with them. But now it's kind of, because I do those conversations a lot, it's naturally moved towards an older audience anyway. Like I talk about just a variety of stuff. Like, no, I don't think there's any there's not really any 14-year-olds that want to listen to my take on, the latest political like move from the US or Brexit or anything like that. And philosophy is another thing I talk about a lot on my channel. I'm vegan, so that was a whole thing that I had to like discuss with everyone on channel for ages. Okay. So like, younger people typically aren't super interested in all that stuff. So I just sort of naturally moved towards an older
I think you're absolutely, I've felt that very clearly, in the sense that the people who stick around, they gravitate towards, my way of talking about stuff and talking about like, a bit like deeper conversations sometimes beyond, what's new on Fortnite. Not to not to like offend anybody who's into that stuff, but it just kind of a bit shallow. It feels in some places. So I'm kind of quite picky with my audience, but I think it works very naturally. Most people just go into the content and they're like, it's not for me, and that's fine, right? They move on. But then valuable people stick around, and each like one new person that does stay and become a member of the community, that's one whole new set of interactions between that person and everybody else that's already in there. So I find that it grows quite nicely in that sense. At the same time, I think it's important to not grow like super quickly, even if it was possible, let's say, to like flip a switch and explode, right? Which doesn't really happen these days. I think that it wouldn't scale well. Because what I have now, where I'm talking to 10, 20 people, and I can keep up with everybody and pay like a lot of attention to everybody, I don't think I'd be able to do that with 100 people or plus.
Yeah.
So you need like different systems when you get to that point, right? And 100%. It almost feels like it would be a different kind of program altogether.
Yeah.
So I'm not even sure if that's somewhere I want to go necessarily. How do you feel about that? Is that something you aspire to get to that level?
Yeah, so I would love personally, like, my end goal. I don't typically do particularly long-term goals. Usually all of my goals are short-term. So right now it's like, okay, I'm out of Soulsborne games. What are we going to build our channel around now? What are we moving towards? I like looking at the kind of near future, but the only long-term goal I have really is I would genuinely love to do this full-time. And for that, you need a fairly big audience. So I naturally would fall into the camp of people that would have bigger channels and more chaotic chats. I would say that I think it is actually quite possible to do even huge chats with surprisingly good interactivity. The one example I would point to, and I know not everyone is the biggest fan of him, but I think Destiny does it really well. He does a great job of like interacting with chat, constantly have interesting conversations on his channel, and he averages like 2,000 to 4,000 people.
Right.
So it's it's definitely possible. You just got to kind of foster the community, and
you can't get to everybody, but certainly you can get to enough people that it feels like you're getting to everything.
Exactly.
To some extent. I think that one thing. So if I may give you my perspective, then if that's a goal for you, let's say, right, to grow to a point where it's like there's enough people there that you can do it as a full-time thing. Let's say my suggestion, based on what I've kind of researched and learned so far, take it with a grain of salt, okay? And if it doesn't make sense to you, ignore it, right?
Sure. No, go ahead.
But my suggestion is that get your discovery from elsewhere outside of Twitch, because Twitch is kind of very difficult. Very little people actually find you through browsing and stuff. So do other platforms which you're already in, right? So you're YouTube, Twitter, you have a presence there. But what I would say is maybe consider pulling back a little bit. Instead of like 5 days a week, which leaves you very little time, maybe do 4 or even like 3 days a week streaming on Twitch, even though I understand that's what you like the most, but just, to kind of kick things off, because then that gives you more time to create stuff on whether it's YouTube or, Twitter or TikTok, I don't know, whatever you want to do, right? And then also critical is what I was talking about, like narrowing down a bit what you do on YouTube, I think will help, because what that will do is, the power of that is you can create something that's an accurate representation of what it is you create on Twitch as well, but in condensed form. So maybe it's like a 10-minute video of you talking about a game, or it could be anything, right? But again, try to like narrow it down so that when someone finds that, one, they can stay tuned for the next video because they know what to expect, and then second, they also, if they like that video, they know they can go to Twitch for more, because it's going to be an extension of that content. Whereas if you have just a lot of different content on YouTube, it's not going to be clear to them that it's a direct extension for them to go over to Twitch. So that jump is less likely, I think, in that case.
It's actually, it's funny. It's funny that you say that, because so here's a kind of funny meme. basically just because I was bored one day and I was like, screw it, let's try it. I actually put up an ad on Fiverr for stream coaching because I'd done it for long enough. And I was like, you know what? I've got kind of a small community. I could maybe help people get to like, I don't know, 10 concurrent viewers or whatever. Just get like a base audience, right? And basically everything you've just said is stuff that I parrot to them. Yeah, I think everything you've said is bang on. Twitch is not a discoverability platform. You will not get big just streaming on Twitch. The rule that I always say is, if you're putting in 10 hours on Twitch, you should also be putting in at least 10 hours off platform on some discoverability platforms. So maybe that's 10 hours of video editing, that's 10 hours of social media work, whatever. Like, you need to be growing elsewhere. And I don't always follow my own advice. I'm not the best necessarily following what I think is good advice. But regardless, yeah, I completely 100% wholeheartedly agree. Simply put, you can't grow on Twitch. It's just the facts.
Well, the growth is like it's trickling down is the way I think about it. Some people will find you over time, but if you can have a presence elsewhere and then use that to your advantage.
I'm being somewhat hyperbolic. You can grow on Twitch, obviously. To some
it's just
degree,
kind of very slow, isn't it?
It's very slow, very diminished growth compared to if you just tried to get an audience. Like, it's much easier to get an audience on YouTube, for example. Yeah. So yeah, no, 100%, without a shadow of a doubt.
So in our last minutes, can we go back to Dota 2 real quick and give me like your top? What's your main role and hero? Let's say.
Sure. I've only just come into ranked and I've kind of been playing around with different roles at the minute, so I don't really have one. But I would say that if I'm playing like I guess like my carry, I really enjoy playing Troll Warlord. He's just a really, really crazy strong carry at the minute. My support, I really enjoy playing Vengeful Spirit because I think she's just got a good kit, a good versatile kit. And if you need
that sounds slightly obscene, but let's move past that.
Yep. No, exactly. Yeah. But I tell you, do you know what my favorite meme is at the minute? My favorite spicy play is playing Lina in position 5, going hard support. And then instead of being in lane for like levels 1 to say 4, you chuck down a ward in between their 2 towers and snipe the opponent's couriers while they're delivering new like healing items and stuff. It just tilts people like an unholy amount. Yeah. But it's actually really effective because they stop getting healing items, they don't get their boots. Your position 1 can just crush that lane, and they just can't get anything done really. It's worked out surprisingly well.
Yeah, it's crazy because now that I've come back, all of a sudden there's like individual couriers. It used to be just one, right, per team.
Right. Okay,
so there's some like quality of life changes that I'm still getting used to, but it's I'm glad you're enjoying it, man, and we'll definitely have to do some co-op games for sure.
Sure, no doubt.
Do you have like someone that's like helping you or like coaching you in some way, or are you going totally like by yourself?
Pretty much by myself. I would say my coach overall is Reddit. I've been writing up. This is going to be a kind of fun little experiment for me, but I've been basically, because I'm a new player, I looked up guides initially and then quickly realized there isn't really like you're new to MOBAs, here is a like brain dead, like step-by-step how to play Dota guide for new players, at least not for each hero. There's kind of like an overall one on YouTube, but there's not really like a Troll Warlord how to play him for dummies kind of thing. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to log every mistake I make, like every tiny little thing I learn. I'm just going to write it all down, log it all, and make big posts to Reddit and call them a beginner's journey. And then slowly over time, hopefully like spread some, useful knowledge to people. And these threads have actually managed to get a fair bit of traction. So I've now got a bit of a Twitch audience that are really good at Dota that swing by and just give me advice, basically. So yeah, that's cool. Teacher actually read it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. And maybe you can get some traction from there. We were talking about other platforms, right? That's a good one.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think that, Purge, I used to watch videos from Purge. He's got a good YouTube channel where he's very analytical, explains stuff well.
Oh, cool. Okay, I've not heard of him before.
I think it's like, if you just search like Dota Purge in YouTube, you find. So he's got a ton of these videos for beginners. It's good stuff. But yeah, man, looking forward to, to your progress and maybe playing with you sometime. But was there anything we didn't get to that you wanted to cover today, or pimp anything on your channel that's going on?
No, not especially. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm game to talk about any topic. So if you ever want me to come on and chat, I'm more than happy to come on, regardless of what the topic is. I'll talk about pretty much anything to anyone. And yeah, as far as stuff on my channel, I guess like the main thing right now is Dota's been really fun. So if anybody is interested in Dota, I'm playing every Wednesday and Friday. We're in ranked now, doing our placement games. We've done 4 out of 10, I believe, or 3 out of 10, something like that. So we're getting there. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm doing single player games as well, but like I said, we're kind of in a bit of a transitionary period because I'm done with the Soulsborne stuff, so I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to go to now. Like I said, right now I'm doing Alien Isolation, so we may just do like variety single player with Dota on the side. But yeah, we'll see. Right now, I'm not 100% sure where my channel's going, honestly. But yeah, work it out over time.
Well, dude, I mean, the hour has gone by, you know, just flying for me. And there's more topics I want to get to, maybe in some other occasion with you, like you talked about philosophy and some other stuff that I'm also, you know, into. So we can definitely have another conversation if you like. Sure. But I hope you enjoyed our conversation, and people here coming from your channel as well. Appreciate people stepping in. So I'm going to let you go, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, man. We'll catch you next time.
You too. See you around. Thank you so much for having me. Cheers to everyone who's watched. Peace out, everyone.
Bye-bye. All right. Well, thank you very much, Devin. That was a great conversation, and we'll see you next time.